In the bustling market town of Ekura, nestled by the great river, the people lived by the pulse of trade, tradition, and superstition. At the heart of the town's gossip was the wealthy and enigmatic Chief Bako, a man whose fortune seemed to grow with each passing year. He owned half of the town, business, and mansion that sparkled under the sun. Yet, for all his wealth, a cloud of mystery shrouded him. No one knew the source of his power, and whispered followed him wherever he went. Among the many families struggling to survive in Ekura was Amara and her mother Adako. Amara was a bright young girl, full of spirit and beauty. At 18, her beauty had become the talk of the village. However, life had not been kind to them since her father's passing. Adako's small market stall, selling vegetables and spices, barely kept them afloat. The weight of poverty pressed heavily on her, and she grew desperate. When Chief Bako arrived at their modest home one evening, dressed in his fine robe with gold chains draped across his chest, Adako knew what he had come for. He didn't have to say much. His eyes, dark and calculating, lingered on Amara with an intensity that made her shift uneasily. "I have watched your daughter grow into a fine woman," Chief Bako said, his deep voice smooth like oil. "I have come to ask for her hand in marriage." Amara's heart dropped. She had heard of Chief Baku's past wives, each one disappearing mysteriously after only a few months of marriage. The rumors were dark, whispers of sacrifices, of rituals, of women turning into something inhuman before they vanish without a trace. Adaku, however, was blinded by the promise of wealth. She saw in Chief Bako an opportunity to escape the grinding poverty that had consumed their lives. "You will be well taken care of, Amara. Don't worry about that, my daughter," Adaku said, her voice tingled with excitement. "Look at what Chief Bako is offering us, Amara. His wealth will provide for us both." Amara, horrified, turned to her mother. "But what about the others? His wife? They all disappear. I've heard of the rumors, Mama. There's something wrong with him." Adaku waved her hand dismissively. "People talk too much. Chief Baku is a respected man. He has everything we need. This is your chance to secure our future, Amara. And I also want to dress like other women in the village. Don't you want to look good? Don't money fit you? Don't you want money in your life, Amara?" Amara tried to protest, but all her protests fell on deaf ears. That night, the bride price was paid and arrangements were made. In less than a week, Amara was married to Chief Bako. The day of the wedding arrived, and the entire town gathered to witness the union. Chief Bako arrived in his golden palanquin, surrounded by his servants and musicians, while Amara wore the finest garments she had ever touched. But behind her forced smile, her heart raced with dread. As the sun set over the village, Amara was escorted to Chief Bako's grand mansion, a sprawling estate that seemed to stretch endlessly in the night. The servants ushered her into a room filled with candles and strange carvings. The atmosphere felt suffocating, and the shadows seemed to move of their own accord. Chief Bako entered the room, his eyes glittering in the dim light. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You are mine now, Amara," he said, his voice low and commanding. "You will live the life of luxury beyond your wildest dream." But that night, as Amara laid in the grand bed, of her new husband. She could not shake the feeling of being watched. She tossed and turned, haunted by a strange dreams of serpents winding through dark corridors. Their east voice whispered secrets she could not understand. The day turns into week, and Chief Bako remained an elusive presence. He would leave the house before dawn and return long after the moon had risen. Amara wandered through the vast, empty hall of the mansion. Her only company was the silent servants who avoided her gaze. But it wasn't the loneliness that troubled her. It was the increasing strangeness of her surroundings. She began to notice things she had missed before. The faint smell of incenses that lingered in the corridor, the strange rhythmic chanting that seemed to come from the basement at odd hours, and the peculiar marking on the floor that resembled snake scales. One night, unable to shake the growing sense of dread, Amara decided to explore the so-called Chief Baku's mansion, and there she saw an abandoned hut. Her heart pounding in her chest, the air grew colder as she moved closer to the hut, and the chanting she had heard in her mid-meals became louder, more distinct. She followed the sound to the direction of the hut. She saw Chief Baku standing before an altar, his hands raised in prayer. Surrounding him were several large coiled snakes, their dark eyes gleaming in the candlelight. Amara stifled a gasp. She has heard of rituals before, but this was something far darker than she had ever imagined in her life. Her hands shook as she backed away from the door, but in her panic, she stumbled over a loose stone, making a loud noise. Chief Baku's head snapped towards the door. "Who is there?" he called, his voice sharp. Amara froze, her blood turning to ice. Before she could flee, Chief Baku was at the door, his eyes burning with fury. "You should not have come here, Amara," he hissed, his voice cold and inhuman. His hands shot out, gripping her wrist with unnatural strength, grabbing her into the room. "Please let me go," Amara cried, struggling against him, but her strength was nothing compared to his. He threw her down onto the cold stone floor, and the snakes slithered towards her, their hissing filling the air. "This is what happens to those who disobey," Chief Baku growled. His eyes seemed to glow with an eerie green light, and his face twisted into something unrecognizable. "You belong to me now, body and soul." Amara screamed as the snake wrapped around her legs, their cold, slimy body constricting her movements. She could feel their fang grazing her skin, their venom seeping into her blood. Her body began to change. Her skin hardened, her limbs grew numb, and a cold, suffocating darkness swallowing her whole. Her transformation was agonizing, but as the venom coursed through her vein, she could feel herself slipping away, her consciousness merging with the dark ancient force that surrounded her. Days later, the town of Ekura buzzed with the news that Chief Baku's new wife had vanished. Just like the others before her, Adaku, drowning in regret, wept bitterly at her stall in the market, cursing the day she had agreed to marry off her daughter. But Amara was no more. Deep within the bowels of Chief Baku's mansion, she slithered through the darkness with the others, her mind lost to the ancient rituals, her body transformed into a serpent, doomed to serve the man who had stolen her life for his dark and twisted purposes. If Baku's wealth grew once again, his power sustained by the sacrifice of another innocent soul, and the people of Ekura continued to whisper in fear of the man whose wives never returned. I hope you've enjoyed this story. What have you learned from it? Tell me in the comment section. And don't forget to like, share, and comment on this video. Thank you.